9 Golden Age Hollywood stars with shockingly bad hygiene. Those gorgeous faces that lit up silver screens, they were hiding Hollywood's filthiest secrets. Behind the glamour and designer gowns lurked breath that could kill small animals, body odor that emptied rooms, and personal habits so revolting that studios paid millions to keep them buried. These weren't just stars with occasional bad days. These were walking biohazards who made their co-stars suffer for their art. The shocking truth about these Golden Age icons will forever ruin how you watch their classic films. Get ready to hold your nose as we expose the 9 most disgusting stars ever to grace a movie marquee. 1. Clark Gable, the king of halitosis. Clark Gable, Hollywood's ultimate heartthrob whose smile made women faint worldwide, but his leading ladies weren't swooning from desire. They were fighting not to vomit. Behind that famous mustache lurked a rotting horror show. Gable wore full dentures by age 32, not partial, full, thanks to a gum infection so catastrophic his teeth practically jumped out of his skull to escape. The resulting mouth rot created breath so toxic it should have come with a hazard warning. Vivien Leigh needed smelling salts between takes on Gone with the Wind. During their famous kiss scenes, she later confessed to mentally going somewhere else like victims of torture. But Loretta Young got it worst on Call of the Wild, where she reportedly vomited after a kissing scene and told her assistant, "Kissing Clark is like French kissing a corpse that's been pickled in vinegar." One cameraman described the experience of filming Gable in close-up. It was like pointing your camera into the devil's asshole after a chili cook-off. Studios deployed industrial-strength solutions, with MGM reportedly creating a dedicated Gable Breath emergency kit containing mouthwash, mints, and actual nose plugs for crew members filming in confined spaces. None of it worked. His dentures, rarely cleaned and poorly fitted, trapped food particles that decomposed into what one gaffer called a stench that could strip wallpaper. As one studio insider brutally put it, they called him a gentleman until they got close enough to smell the truth. Then they called him, "Oh God, not again." The next time you watch Gable's romantic scenes, remember you're witnessing Hollywood's greatest special effect. Women looking love-struck while being blasted with breath that could kill houseplants at 20 paces.
Anyway, I'm thinking more. It's good for you, Bob.
2. Marlon Brando, the human garbage barge. Marlon Brando revolutionized acting while simultaneously revolutionizing new frontiers in human stink. The man who mumbled, the horror in Apocalypse Now, was actually describing his own personal hygiene. Brando didn't just occasionally skip showers, he treated cleanliness like it had personally insulted his mother. He routinely arrived on sets having not bathed for days, wearing clothes so ripe they could have qualified for their own ZIP code. One on the waterfront crew member said, Brando's costume smelled like low tide at a fish market during a garbage strike. His grossest habit? Deliberately sabotaging intimate scenes by weaponizing his own filth. On Last Tango in Paris, he reportedly ate copious amounts of blue cheese and refused to brush his teeth before filming with Maria Schneider. During the Missouri breaks, he wore the same underwear for the entire 3-month shoot, proudly announcing this achievement at rap parties. By the time he filmed Apocalypse Now, Brando had evolved into what director Francis Ford Coppola privately called a sentient swamp. His trailer reportedly required hazardous waste protocols after he left, with one set decorator confessing, "We had to burn the furniture. I'm not kidding. Burn it. It was cheaper than trying to clean what he left behind." His performances were legendary. One grip who worked on multiple Brando films recalled, so was his stink. It had layers, like an onion. First sweat, then rancid food, then something that I think was actually decomposing on his body. The tragedy of Brando wasn't just his wasted talent, but that an entire generation of method actors thought smelling like month-old garbage was somehow part of the craft. As Apocalypse Now co-star Dennis Hopper supposedly remarked after filming, working with Brando gave me a whole new appreciation for napalm. 3. Steve McQueen, oil slick in human form. Steve McQueen, the king of cool, should have been called the emperor of eau de grease trap. Hollywood's rebel icon treated personal hygiene as just another rule to break, creating a stench that was anything but cool. McQueen's obsession with motorcycles and race cars extended to smelling exactly like them. He'd show up to romantic scenes covered in engine grease, transmission fluid, and what one makeup artist called a funk so thick you could have spread it on toast. Rather than showering between working on his vehicles and filming, McQueen would perform what co-stars called the pit stop special, wiping his armpits with paper towels, splashing cologne on top of dirt, and declaring himself camera ready. He'd wipe his armpits with paper towels, then go right back to filming, recalled one horrified set assistant. But the paper towels just moved the stink around, like trying to clean up an oil spill with a cocktail napkin. The irony that still haunts Hollywood, McQueen was fanatical about cleaning his cars and motorcycles, spending hours polishing and perfecting machines while his own body festered. His 1968 Ford Mustang from Bullitt received more careful attention than his own teeth, which one lighting technician described as the exact color of butterscotch pudding, but with the texture of cottage cheese. Faye Dunaway, his co-star in the Thomas Crown Affair, reportedly demanded their kissing scenes be shot in as few takes as possible. The director later revealed this wasn't artistic preference, but survival instinct after Dunaway compared kissing McQueen to licking the floor of an auto repair shop. Perhaps the most telling McQueen hygiene anecdote came from The Great Escape set, where fellow actor James Garner reportedly said, "When Steve took off his boots in the POW barracks scenes, the Nazis should have just surrendered. That smell violated the Geneva Convention. As one studio exec perfectly summarized, he made cool look easy and hygiene look impossible." The next time you watch McQueen's iconic motorcycle scenes, remember, what you can't experience is the eye-watering cloud that followed him like cartoon stink lines made real.
Well, Ricky, who am I going to get to serve dinner tonight? Hi.
Hiya.
4. Tallulah Bankhead, the proud queen of filth. Tallulah Bankhead didn't just break social norms. She dragged them through dirt and then rolled around in them. Unlike stars who hid their filthy habits, Bankhead flaunted hers like badges of honor in a crusade against basic cleanliness. "I never wash. I have an agreement with the dirt," wasn't just a witty line, but her actual life philosophy. Stage managers reported that Bankhead sometimes went weeks without bathing, creating what one described as a miasma that followed her like a loyal but unwelcome pet. Her dressing rooms became recognized biohazards, with one Broadway theater reportedly designating hers as the Swamp and requiring special cleaning protocols after her runs ended. Bankhead's most notorious habit, proudly going underwear-free for decades, created situations that traumatized unsuspecting crews. During the filming of Alfred Hitchcock's Lifeboat, where she spent weeks in close quarters with other actors, cinematographer Arthur Miller reportedly begged Hitchcock to make her wear underwear for scenes where she had to climb ladders. Hitchcock's famous response, "I don't know if this is a matter for the costume department, makeup, or animal control." Her personal quarters reached legendary levels of squalor. One maid at the Algonquin Hotel quit on the spot after entering Bankhead's suite, later telling the manager, "I've cleaned up crime scenes that were more sanitary." Visitors described mountains of cigarette butts, empty bottles, food remnants, and stained clothing, creating an archaeological record of debauchery. She lit up a room, then cleared it out with the smell, theater producer Jed Harris reportedly remarked. Tallulah didn't just push envelopes, she pushed everyone's gag reflexes. What made Bankhead's filthiness unique was how she incorporated it into her brand of shocking behavior. When one director gently suggested she might consider bathing before intimate scenes, Bankhead reportedly shot back, "Darling, if you wanted a rose garden, you should have cast one of those sanitized MGM virgins. You hired Tallulah Bankhead, and you get all of me, including the parts that haven't seen soap since the Hoover administration."
I haven't played since playing in the Thousand Islands many years ago. I used to be in the dressing business up.
5. W.C. Fields, walking distillery with legs. W.C. Fields didn't just play alcoholics. He was a method actor decades before the term existed. The only difference between Fields on screen and off was that the real version smelled infinitely worse. Fields marinated himself in alcohol so thoroughly that lighting technicians would nervously check the wattage of lamps near him, fearing he might combust. His daily routine began with martinis for breakfast, not alongside breakfast, instead of breakfast. By midday, his sweat could have been bottled and sold as gin. His breath didn't just smell like alcohol, one assistant director recalled. It smelled like alcohol that had been used to preserve other, smaller alcoholics. Co-stars described the experience of sharing close scenes with Fields as like being trapped in an elevator with a whiskey, still that's wearing a suit. The alcohol-induced hygiene issues went far beyond just breath. Fields rarely bathed, creating what one costume designer called a layered olfactory experience. Bottom notes of stale liquor, middle notes of sweat, and top notes of despair. His clothing absorbed so much alcohol that one wardrobe assistant claimed we could have wrung out his suit and served it as a cocktail. His hotel rooms became legendary disaster zones that hotel staff drew straws to avoid cleaning. Fields didn't just leave a room, he fermented it, one hotel manager reportedly complained. Maids described finding bottles hidden in every conceivable location, including toilet tanks, light fixtures, and hollowed-out books. The legendary director Gregory LaCava put it most memorably, "Fields doesn't age, he pickles." The man is effectively his own formaldehyde factory. Despite, or perhaps because of, his perpetual pickling, Fields maintained a successful career, though it required extraordinary accommodations from studios. Paramount reportedly scheduled his scenes for early morning, not because he was fresher then, but because he was still technically intoxicated from the night before, rather than newly drunk, which somehow proved more manageable for directors. The next time you chuckle at Fields' perfect comic timing, remember that the actors sharing his scenes were performing minor miracles, keeping straight faces while being crop-dusted by fumes that could strip varnish off furniture.
It's not.
Gladys Cooper died? Oh, I'm sorry to...
And you know, without...
6. Bette Davis, the chimney with two eyes. Bette Davis didn't just smoke cigarettes, she was a cigarette with human appendages. Hollywood's grande dame of drama created a toxic cloud so permanent that it became her unofficial co-star in every production. Davis didn't just love cigarettes, she had what one director called a relationship more committed than any of her marriages. Consuming upwards of 100 cigarettes daily, she treated each one like an oxygen supplement. Studio accountants reportedly created a special Davis nicotine budget on her films that rivaled the catering costs for the entire crew. She was brilliant, but she smelled like a burning library filled with wet ashtrays, actress Miriam Hopkins reportedly said after filming Old Acquaintance. The chain smoking created not just the expected bad breath, but a miasma that permeated everything Davis touched. Her costumes required specialized cleaning that one wardrobe supervisor compared to decontamination procedures after a chemical spill. Davis's dressing rooms required their own ventilation systems. Makeup artists described working through a perpetual fog that left them with what they called Davis lung, a temporary respiratory condition that cleared up only days after production wrapped. One technician claimed you could tell which dressing room was hers from 100 yards away. Just look for the door, with the yellow nicotine stains radiating outward like some kind of toxic sun. The most affecting description came from director William Wyler after filming The Little Foxes. Kissing Bette was like licking the inside of a crematorium. I didn't direct her performance so much as survive it. Davis seemed proudly oblivious to how her habit affected others. When one young actor dared mention the smoke making him uncomfortable during a scene, Davis reportedly fixed him with her famous eyes and said, "If you wanted fresh air, darling, you should have become a farmer, not an actor." Perhaps the most telling Davis anecdote involved a fire alarm evacuation during the filming of All About Eve. As cast and crew filed outside, someone noticed Davis was missing. A production assistant found her still in her dressing room smoking. When told the building might be on fire, she reportedly exhaled a perfect smoke ring and replied, "Darling, I am the fire." 7. Howard Hughes, From Playboy to Petri Dish. Howard Hughes presents the most dramatic hygiene collapse in Hollywood history, a cautionary tale of how a handsome aviator/producer became a human biohazard experiment. Hughes didn't just let himself go, he transformed into something that would make horror movie directors say, "That's a bit much." The most mind-bending aspect of Hughes's deterioration was that it stemmed from germophobia. The man who once dated Katharine Hepburn and Ava Gardner eventually became so afraid of contamination that he stopped bathing entirely, somehow concluding that total filth was preferable to potentially impure water. He feared filth until he became its most advanced practitioner, one former associate noted. The billionaire's decline tracked alongside his mental health, creating a perfect storm of wealth and illness that enabled horrifying conditions no ordinary person could sustain. In his final years, Hughes developed hygiene rituals that read like rejected Saw movie plots. He stored his urine in meticulously labeled mason jars. He went months without cutting his fingernails, which grew into yellowed talons that curled inward toward his palms. His hair and beard grew wild and matted with food debris. Most disturbing, he would sit naked in his germ-free zone, a recliner centered in a room where he used tissues to touch anything, then discarded them on the floor, until they formed what one horrified attendant called a snow globe of human decay. Former employees described entering his sealed environments as stepping into a corpse that was somehow still breathing. The smell became so distinctive that staffers reportedly could tell which room Hughes had occupied even months after he'd left, as the odor had penetrated the very walls. The ultimate irony. This man who produced Hell's Angels and set aviation records became unable to appear in public because his stench would have cleared any room instantly. His billions couldn't buy basic cleanliness because his mind convinced him that cleanliness itself was the enemy. When Hughes died in 1976, the official cause was kidney failure, but first responders reportedly needed therapy after finding his body. One paramedic supposedly quit his job the same day, telling colleagues, "I've seen car accidents with dismemberment that were less disturbing than what was growing on that man." Hughes' transformation from Hollywood's dashing playboy to human petri dish represents the most extreme hygiene decline ever documented among the elite. The man who once personified glamour died in conditions that would make a medieval peasant say, "You might want to consider a bath."
I'm Howard Hughes.
8. Ava Gardner, beauty's rotting core. Ava Gardner, the woman Sinatra ruined his life to possess, the face that launched 1,000 fantasies, carried a secret behind her goddess image. She smelled like forgotten laundry left in a damp basement. While her luminous beauty dazzled on screen, Gardner maintained hygiene habits that one MGM makeup artist described as somewhere between college bachelor and feral cat. Despite having access to Hollywood's finest grooming resources, Gardner approached personal cleanliness with what colleagues called aggressive indifference. Her most notorious neglect involved dental hygiene. She rarely brushed her teeth, confided a makeup artist who worked on multiple Gardner films. "We developed a whole system. Mints hidden on set, strategic mouthwash moments between takes, and camera angles specifically chosen to keep leading men upwind." One leading man reportedly described kissing Gardner as like tongue diving into yesterday's dinner. Rather than regular bathing, Gardner preferred to layer expensive French perfume over her natural scent, creating what one director called olfactory warfare, the smell equivalent of putting a designer dress over mud-caked undergarments. The combination of body odor, cigarette smoke, and heavy perfume became so distinctive that crew members could reportedly track her movements throughout studio lots without seeing her. She left lipstick and cigarette ash in every room, and in every bed, one household employee allegedly revealed. Gardner's bedroom habits warranted their own special protocols, with hotel staff reporting that her sheets required immediate changing and sometimes complete replacement due to the cocktail of bodily fluids, makeup, and mysterious stains she left behind. A studio executive who worked closely with Gardner during her MGM years provided perhaps the most vivid assessment: a goddess in the spotlight, a gremlin in the morning light. Before hair, makeup, and perfume, Ava looked and smelled like she'd been discovered under a bridge rather than at a drugstore counter. Gardner's natural magnetism somehow transcended her hygiene issues, with men seemingly willing to overlook any olfactory assault to be near her legendary beauty. Frank Sinatra, during their tempestuous marriage, reportedly installed multiple showers in their home in a subtle campaign to encourage more frequent bathing, a campaign that apparently failed spectacularly. As one director supposedly remarked after a particularly challenging day on set, "Ava's beauty is the perfect crime. It's so distracting, you don't notice you're being poisoned by everything else about her."
Oh, I don't know. He's not a very good actor on stage. You know, he's not a very good actor off stage either.
9. Charles Laughton, the human compost heap. Charles Laughton transformed himself into cinema's most memorable monsters, from Quasimodo to Captain Bligh. But according to Hollywood insiders, his greatest transformation may have been convincing audiences they weren't smelling him through the screen. Laughton's body odor achieved what one director called a presence that deserved its own billing. It wasn't just occasional actor sweat, but a complex ecosystem developed through strategic neglect. Costume departments created specific Laughton protocols that one wardrobe master described as treating his clothes like hazardous waste that somehow needed to look like 18th century formal wear. Costumers had to air out his wardrobe daily, revealed a studio wardrobe supervisor. And by air out, I mean quarantine in a separate room with industrial fans running continuously. On particularly hot shooting days, productions reportedly scheduled Laughton's scenes in a specific order, not for narrative coherence, but to minimize the number of costume changes required, as each new outfit would be immediately contaminated. What made Lawton's hygiene issues particularly challenging was his physically demanding acting style. Known for fully embodying his characters, Lawton would throw himself into performances with total commitment, working up what one lighting technician called a lather that would make a racehorse look mildly dewy. This perspiration, combined with his baseline aroma, created what Alfred Hitchcock reportedly described as a sensory experience that makes suspense seem pleasant by comparison. Despite these challenges, directors tolerated Lawton's olfactory assault because of his unparalleled talent. The legendary Billy Wilder supposedly instructed his cinematographer on witness for the prosecution. If you smell something terrible, keep rolling. That's just Charles reaching his emotional peak. Co-stars developed coping mechanisms that verged on performance art themselves. Marlene Dietrich, while filming Witness for the prosecution, reportedly kept smelling salts hidden in her costume and would discreetly use them between takes. She later told a friend, "I wasn't acting surprise in our scenes together. I was acting consciousness." A stage manager who worked with Lawton in theater provided perhaps the most memorable assessment. He could memorize a Shakespeare monologue overnight, but apparently couldn't memorize the location of his bathtub for decades. The fact that Lawton's wife, Elsa Lanchester, stayed married to him from 1929 until his death in 1962 has been cited by historians as either history's greatest love story or evidence of anosmia. These 9 icons proved that Hollywood's most carefully guarded secret wasn't scandalous affairs or hidden identities. It was the eye-watering, stomach-turning reality that the most beautiful people on screen were often the most revolting in person. The gap between their glamorous images and their putrid realities reveals the movie industry's greatest special effect, convincing audiences that these walking biohazards were the epitome of desirability. What's truly remarkable isn't just how bad these stars smelled, but how successfully studios concealed these olfactory horrors from the public. Without social media or tell-all memoirs, fans remained blissfully ignorant that their bedroom pinups and matinee idols were functioning as human petri dishes between takes. Only stars with supernova talent could get away with such revolting personal habits. Lesser actors who dared show up with Brando's stench or Gable's breath would have been blacklisted faster than you can say basic hygiene. The tolerance for these walking health code violations represents perhaps the purest example of how talent trumped all in Hollywood's golden age, even the gag reflexes of everyone within smelling distance. Next time you watch these legends work their magic on screen, remember the true heroes, the co-stars who somehow maintained romantic expressions while fighting their own bodies' desperate urge to flee the premises. Those weren't just Oscar-worthy performances happening on camera. They were acts of olfactory endurance that no acting school could possibly prepare you for. So the next time you wish you could travel back to Hollywood's golden age and meet these icons in person, thank your lucky stars that this particular wish can never come true. Some glamorous illusions are better left intact, especially when the reality would require a hazmat suit and industrial-strength nose plugs. If you found these revelations disgustingly fascinating, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more of Hollywood's dirtiest secrets. Let us know in the comments which stars' revolting habits shocked you most. Thanks for joining us on this nostril-searing journey behind the seemingly pristine facade of Hollywood's most pungent legends.